Hello. Good morning, everyone. We're starting with the session, and I'll be the chair of the session. My name is Khomotso Maenetja. Um, we have an opening remarks from Professor Mapanga, and then we also have a keynote speaker, an opening speaker, who's Trish, who will come right after Professor Mapanga. And then we also have Grace, who will follow Trish, and I will introduce the next speaker as they come. Yeah.
Good day, everybody. I'm happy to hear and I'm delighted to see all the gentlemen who are here to support us. It's exciting to see that there are many who are there to support us. And my task is not a big one, it's a very small task. And I plan that I'm going to try and summarize it in 500 words, which I want to ask you to count as I speak so that I don't go beyond 500 words. Otherwise, I'm here to welcome everybody, and I just want to say a special welcome to all our invited speakers who will be coming to the front, and also a special welcome to all the gentlemen that are here. We really appreciate your support. And the reason that you are here, those who attended the crossfire last night or late in the afternoon yesterday, there was a question that was asked regarding diversity and inclusivity. So this session, the BOF session, is our little contribution to that, to say that as women in HPC, what are the small things that we can do to synthesize the people out there, to make the community aware of the issues that are faced by different people, maybe because of their agenda. You know that sometimes women have to do many things compared to our counterparts, for example, raising children. So I do understand and acknowledge that we both contribute to that, but in most of the responsibility lies with us as women. So that's our contribution in that regard. And as I said, I'm not going to say many things except that we have been running these sessions for several years. We started, I think the first one was in 2015, and it came about after attending the supercomputing conference that happens every year in the US. So there's a similar session that is going on at that conference, which is a huge conference that attracts, I understand, is over 10,000 participants. So there's a session for women in HPC, an international organization that is formal and well structured. So we thought we could do the same here at home and see what are the things that we can do to change the situation. We had ideas before COVID-19 pandemic came in, where we were planning to work on some projects to visit schools and encourage learners while they're still young, but we had kept that on hold. We are hoping to revive that going forward. And without taking much more time, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker.
Before we go to the first speaker, I think it's only fit to have her introduced. So, Brenna, kindly introduce the first speaker.
Thank you very much. I'm feeling very privileged to getting a speaking slot in this session. So even if it's only to introduce Trish, welcome to this session. Maybe I'm just reading it off. I don't want to get it wrong, but currently Trish is Senior Vice President and Chief Product Officer at HPC and AI Business Group at HPC, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I'm just mentioning it now, but of course, Trish, you are familiar to us for a long time already. And Trish has been involved in CHPC conferences for some time. I can just mention she's, of course, has very important contributions to HPC from many different affiliations. I mean, when I started to know you was from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Then you moved to Intel, and while she was at Intel in 2018, she was a keynote speaker at at the CHPC conference, the one that was held in Cape Town. And it was there that I, for the first time, experienced the enthusiasm that Trish has for diversity matters. And to address, she addressed us at that point. And I'm so privileged that you are here today, although it's with a new affiliation with HPC. HPC you joined in April this year, so it's very recent. But yeah, we are really honored to have you and to have you as our opening speaker in this session as well. So the floor is yours.
Werner.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very nice. And I love being back here at CHPC, the CHPC conference. Who made it to SC? Okay, did anybody, yes? Did anybody make it to the women in HPC? Okay, so you're going to be bored because I'm giving the same talk. Or maybe you want to come up and help me. Okay, there you go. Okay. So one of the things that I found when I was through my career, and like I said, I worked with the national labs for about 25 years. I was at the end the associate director of computation there, so I ran all computation for Lawrence Livermore. And I honestly left because I was bored. It was one of those things where it was financially the stupid decision because we were part of the University of California retirement, could have full salary for the rest of my life. I just had to make it another 15 years. And I couldn't imagine just not learning and growing. So that's why I went to Intel and I was the general manager, vice president for high performance computing there. Great learning opportunity, spent 5 years there. And then, like Werner said, joined HPE in April as a senior vice president. And I will tell you, it has been an amazing opportunity. I absolutely love to learn, I love to grow. And I also am, as I said, very passionate about that next generation and making sure that we're all moving forward together. The talk I'm going to give today really focuses on some of the things I wish I had known earlier in my career. Okay. And I knew some of this, and some of it's pretty obvious, but it's about mentor, coaching, and sponsor. Okay. And the only reason why I have my laptop is I just want to get the definitions. So I'm going to start with mentor. Mentor, most people, how many people have a mentor? Seriously? Okay. Let's talk about why you would want to have a mentor. Okay, a mentor is someone who listens, someone who provides insight, someone who shares formal and informal advice and counsel. It's usually somebody that has been in your role before or is, a little bit more senior in your area. Everybody should have a mentor, at least one. Multiple mentors I would recommend. Because how else are you going to kind of learn the kind of what's going on? I mean, how you have to have that network, right, of people that are going to be there that you can ask questions to. So if you don't have a mentor, do you have somebody that you feel comfortable asking questions and somebody to go to and have those discussions? Because if not, we're going to start matching people up right in this room and change this. Because I had a mentor, and my first mentor, so when I joined Sandia National Labs, I'm an electrical engineer by degree. I was the only woman, and I was probably a good decade younger than everybody else that I was working with. And it was even more exciting because the woman they had before me had sued Sandia for sexual discrimination. So all of the people I was working with were scared to death of me. So I walk in, straight out of my undergrad, and nobody would talk to me. In fact, I was working with explosives at the time, and we had to go up this big hill to go to the bunkers where you could get the explosives out. And they would drive their cart together, but they wouldn't offer me a ride. I had to walk up, it's one of those things. It was just crazy. And so I asked for a mentor because I knew that's something you ask for. I didn't really know what a mentor was. And so they assigned me a woman that was senior to me in another area, right? But I honestly didn't know how to use her and really what that relationship should look like. So to have a mentor, one we were going to get you all need a mentor, okay? But two, you have to own that relationship of being a mentee, because if you're not using it successfully, then you're not going to benefit from it, right? And one of the things is you have to prepare for those meetings. You have to have those questions that you want answered. I have a number of people that come up to me and they say, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, sure, what can I help you with? I don't know, just, and I'm like, I don't have time to mentor people that don't know what they want, right? So if you're going to be a mentee, you need to understand what is you're asking help for. Whether it's, I want to become I'd like to move into this organization. Do you have connections there? What does that work like? I want to ask for a raise. Have you ever done that? How do you do that? Just potential career paths, those kind of things. So that's, kind of what a mentor is about. And so let me tell you why you want to have a mentee or a mentor. 28% had salary increases, where 5% didn't. So it's good for your pocketbook, your bottom line. You're promoted 6 times faster if you have a mentor. And for the organization that has people, it's a 72% retention rate. So people stay because they have a connection. One of my favorite management books is Marcus Buckingham, Break All the Rules. And it talks about the 10 things that you need to give your employees to be successful. And one of them is having a best friend at work. I mean, it's pretty basic, right? And I'm not saying your mentor is going to be your best friend, but you need to have those connections at work. That's what keeps people, I know that's for me, huge, is having somebody that I like working with, I want to be around. Okay. And the other thing is a lot of times when you have a mentee, you become a mentor, right? It's a wonderful cycle that refreshes. And I will tell you, even though I don't have a lot of patience for people that just want a mentor but don't really know what they want, but I will tell you, when I have those good relationships, I, as a mentor, feel I get so much more out of it than I'm giving. Because for me, as a senior exec, I lose that connection with what's really going on in the organization. And to have somebody that can keep me connected is so important. And what are the questions that people really want, or what's really going on? So I think having a mentor and being a mentor is really beneficial for your career and just how you are happy in your job. So job satisfaction. So some of the things about finding the right mentor. Like I said, know what you want. So what you're looking for, mentors can be long-term. It was interesting. I had a face-to-face with my boss and my peers recently, about a month ago. And we all went out to dinner together and we were talking about leadership experiences. And my boss talked about how he has mentors from all over different industries. I mean, we're in technology, right? Hewlett Packard, but in the investment community, in, very broad mentors that he's developed over the years. And he has had these mentors for 20 years. And I sat back and was like, wow, I don't have a mentor right now. I just joined this organization. And that's not completely true. I have people that I have my board of directors, I call them, my personal board of directors, that, like, when I was looking at moving from Intel, where did I want to go? That's the group of people I talk to, what's this, what's that. So they, I guess, were my mentors in a lot of ways, but I don't have those long-term mentoring relationships. And so that's another thing mentors can last a long time, but for me, I found mentors might last a couple of years. You know, it's not like you're getting married to this person and, you know, it's going to be a lifelong thing. You know, it's as you grow and develop, you're going to need different things. So make sure you kind of understand and have that elevator pitch ready. So when somebody comes up to me and asks immediately to be a mentor, I normally, you know, ask them what they're looking for and that kind of stuff. But if somebody comes up and just says, hey, I'd like to connect, do you have, you know, 15 minutes and let's just get to know each other? Always, I will say yes. Right. And then you can size that person up, right? If this is really going to be a good match. So those are some of the suggestions I would have. So I know I don't want to go over. So any questions about mentorship? Have I at least inspired you to think about getting a mentor? Maybe? Okay. And again, the Women in HPC program is a wonderful program if you do a chapter or something along those lines. I was one of the people that worked with Toni Collett. She was the founding owner, I don't know what it is, you know, of Women in HPC, and I was on her original board of directors and sponsored her through that when she was in Edinburgh. And, you know, so she would say, she recently said, you know, Trish, you've been my mentor for however long Women in HPC has been around. And I never felt that. I just thought we were a partnership trying to get something going, and she did all the heavy lifting. I was just good at money, you know, and listening to her woes every so often. So I think, you know, mentorship can come in a lot of different ways too. So just think about that too. Okay, so that's mentor. Now let's talk about coach. As an aside, I became an executive coach. Remember I told you I was bored stiff at Lawrence Livermore. I was running computation. I only had 15 more years. You know, it was a good gig. It was an amazing job. So I started doing everything because, again, I like to learn and grow. I ran supercomputing in SC14. I was the chair of supercomputing because, you know, again, wanted to do something new. One of the other things is I became an executive coach through University of California, Berkeley. And honestly, the best thing out of that is I met my current husband. So that was a really good thing. But part of learning about coaching, there's a lot of different types of coaching, that executive coaching, life coaching. And one of the things I was so fortunate, so I told you I asked for a mentor and I was assigned a mentor at Sandia National Labs. One of the things that they did at Sandia is they assigned me a professional coach. So they paid for me to have a professional coach. And this is an investment. So they chose, I don't know, a handful of people that were their up and comers. And, you know, it's about a $10,000 investment you would make for a 6-month kind of to have an executive or professional coach. And it was really valuable for me at that time in my career. And I'll tell you 2 things that were going on. First, I was, again, the only woman in the room, but I was super uncomfortable because I grew up in a pretty conservative family and all the guys swore like crazy. And I would sit there and I would lose my train of thought because they were, you know, dropping these words that made me uncomfortable, right? And you know, it's like, this is a problem. And maybe today, you know, this was 20 years ago, right? Or 25 years ago. Maybe today we would say, okay, maybe they need to clean up their language a little bit. But 25 years ago, what the coach did for me is took me in a room and for an hour made me swear. And I could barely say the word, you know. And by the end, I was able to shout it out loud. And it got me over that stigma of, you know, I no longer did I flinch every time they swore. You know, it's not like I started swearing myself, but at least I was comfortable in the room and in that space. The other thing that, and the real reason why I was given this coach was about public speaking. And what we did, because I became the program lead for this large project, and I was going to have to talk to Department of Energy a lot and across the Department of Energy sites. And I was pretty meek, I was timid. And so she did, which I thought was really beneficial, is the first thing she says, who do you admire? Who's the people that you want to be like in public speaking? We made our list. And then we would go and we'd watch it. And then we'd compare notes. Did you notice she did this? Did you notice, how he was able to hold the crowd? Did you notice, I don't do slides, because you know what they do? They take your attention there versus on me, right? This afternoon I will have slides, so I do slides, but it's kind of just different ways to manage the crowd and really make that flow. And then and I'm sure a number of you have done this probably with public speaking. They record you and then you have to watch yourself. I still hate so much watching myself. In fact, Patrick, my chief of staff, I make him watch all of this stuff because I still hate it. But that's the way you're going to get better. You have to be able to, you have to do the hard work. So if they're going to spend that money and get you an executive coach, you've got to commit that time and energy. You're going to meet maybe twice a month. You're going to have specific goals, and they're getting paid to make sure that you meet those goals. And it's usually about a 6 month. I'm a remedial client. I normally get more like a year, but it's just, think about that. And again, this is something you can ask for. After I spoke at SC22 at the workshop, a lot of women said, well, how do I even ask for this? And just think about your salary and the amount of time, it's not that big of an investment. I mean, it's between training and all that. And if this is what would make, in your opinion, that difference, ask for it. I mean, what can they say? No, it's not that big of an investment if they really want you to be around. So like I said, it's normally, coaching is about $500 an hour, up to $3,500 an hour. It's used when you want to really develop a specific skill or to go from one place to another in your professional career. Another time I had a professional coach is at Intel. I asked for a professional coach. And honestly, it was because I moved from an academic environment at Lawrence Livermore National Lab to an industry, being in industry. And it's so vastly different. I don't know if I would have done it knowing what I know today, but I'm glad I didn't know, because it's the best thing I did. And I learned an incredible amount, but it was really hard. I didn't speak the lingo. I didn't have the same priorities. I didn't understand, what was important. I wasn't raised, and born that way. I've been in a national lab for 25 years. And so I needed a coach to help me communicate with my manager because I was failing. I was used to communicating to a lab environment, a research environment, not a business environment. And he helped me, get more grounded too. The other thing, because I was spinning, because I wasn't, like all of you, right? I've always been successful. I've always been that A student. And I knew I was failing. And so I was spinning. And some of the things he did was take off your shoes, ground yourself. Let's go walk in the grass. You've got to feel that earth. You've got to feel that stability because you're up here spinning. he would do breathing exercises with me. And it drive me crazy because it's like, no, I got to work. I mean, we've got, lots to do. The most important thing was getting back into my body and being able to understand what was going on. And since that time, and I didn't understand all of the exercises he was doing, but since that time, I have taken up meditation. And a lot of that was what he was doing with me. And I'm awful at meditation. So I'm a student, right? I'm learning. But it is all about really getting back into that space, getting back to where you are centered. And then I, now understand, I went to this amazing retreat where it was a week of really centering yourself, yoga, meditation, that kind of stuff, and life-changing. So probably when I was in my 20s and 30s, I would have thought that it was way too slow. Now that I'm in my 50s, it was exactly what I needed because, I've been working nonstop for 30 years and I just didn't know how to bring myself back down. So I have a tendency to get spun up. So let's go back to coaching. So those are kind of the things. The coach grounded me, taught me how I could speak to my boss in a way that they would understand, taught me how to speak publicly, helped me be okay in the community I was in. So those are some of the things that I've used a coach for. So when our coach is normally engaged, 50% of the time it's for a high potential or to facilitate a transition for you. And 25% of the time it's to kind of be that sounding board. So, I have my board of directors, I call them, right? But that is also, you can use a professional and executive coach for that. I have been brought in to, so when I became an executive coach, what I dedicated my time to was women in male-dominated fields. And I worked with a lot of women in the construction industry in the San Francisco Bay Area where I was located. And I was occasionally brought in to help a woman who was not connecting. And so occasionally they are brought in to either determine whether this person is a fit for the company or not and work with them. But normally it's for those higher risers, people that have potential. Okay, and coaching, 70% increase in performance, 48% increase in organizational performance. It's good for the business. And a 50% increase in team performance. I have a peer I work with. He's a great individual. He so badly needs an executive coach. I'm going to have this conversation with my boss because, he hasn't, these things that he can go from here to the next level with just 6 months of work. It would be a game changer for him. So think about that when you think about, what is it that you're looking for in employees. So I think looking at time, so let's do the very last one is sponsor. And I think this is the one I didn't get. So mentor, kind of knew that from the beginning. Coach, I was fortunate when I was about 5 years into my career that they did that for me. So I learned, and then I obviously learned more and more. Sponsor, I had no clue existed. And it's the most important thing for your career. I have had sponsors throughout my career. I wouldn't be where I am without them. I couldn't name most of my sponsors. Because they're the voice in the room when you're not there advocating on your behalf. Right? And I didn't even know to ask for sponsors. And you can't ask for a sponsor. I didn't even know to try to get sponsors, right? I was fortunate that people just did it, but I should have been much more proactive about it. And normally a sponsor is, it's a highly regarded influencer operating in circles that exceed your own, okay? Normally, they need some exposure to you over time. So it could be your boss, could be your sponsor. A lot of times I've found it's previous bosses. that you've worked with, and they've just kind of watched your career, over time. It could be somebody that was your mentor and, has again watched you over time and has progressed in their career. How do you get a sponsor? And this is so, like I could tell you, you need a mentor. A coach is a great tool, but without a sponsor, it will be very hard for you to move up the organization if that's what you want. Okay. I would just say that I made a decision at Intel when I really started understanding sponsorship that I was just going to start sponsoring women at random. And it was awkward because I didn't even know these people. I would have one meeting with them, and they were identified as high potential. And basically I was like, okay, this is what you want. And over a 6-month period, I got them 10 people promoted. I just used my network to get them their next job. And then I was done, got them to that, took on the next one. That's what it's going to take, I believe, to really change the diversity of this workforce. And I'm now at a position that I am able to do that, right? So I talk to a lot of my peers about that because that's the one thing we can do. We have to start sponsoring or we're not going to change. So that's, anybody that's in that management executive level, that's what I'm going to ask you. Think about who you're going to sponsor. So with that, I just want to, I know we are at time. I hope I gave you some things to think about. If you have questions, you can reach me at trish@hpe.com. Pretty easy. And I'm going to be around too, and I'm speaking later. And I think, it goes both ways. Early career, get yourself a mentor. Well, all throughout your whole career, get mentors. Think of coaching is something, and then really try to develop sponsors again throughout your whole career. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. I think we will have time for questions or discussions after everyone has spoken. The next speaker is online. It's Grace. Is she ready? Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, greetings from Nigeria. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the program director, Professor Khomotso, and Dr. Wynne and the entire Women in High Performance Computing for, putting together this conference. And thank you, Tricia. You did convince me to get a mentor. Although I've had a mentor, but I've not really worked closely with my mentor. But I'm definitely going to ensure that. Thank you for that presentation. So it's my honor to share my experience and how COVID affected my working pattern as a woman and getting back to the office. My name is Grace Ote, and I'm a STEM trainer and a program manager with Working to Advance African Foundation, WOW Foundation. So at WOW Foundation, I manage the organizations and the graduate scholarship program and the college to secondary mentorship program. So prior to COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020, I was a final year student at the University of Nigeria. I was studying for a bachelor's degree, and I was also volunteering as a STEM tutor with WOW Foundation. But due to the pandemic, schools and every other sector were shut down, and everybody had to go on lockdown. social distancing and confined to their homes, pretty much against our wish. Yeah. The COVID-19 really impacted everyone, but most especially women, changing the way we live, the way we work, our social life, and even our access to healthcare. While we agree that there was gender-based disparities existing prior to the pandemic, we also know that these disparities were magnified um, during the COVID-19. So the school closures had a substantial effect on working mothers. Women were forced to sit back at home to care for their work and the whole family. So my experience of COVID-19 was, well, I felt COVID-19 in three significant dimensions. The psychological impact, the financial impact, and the social impact that COVID had on me as a woman. The psychological impact, you know, I mentioned earlier that I was a final year student. So due to the COVID-19, the Nigerian educational system was locked down. It was highly unprecedented. We didn't see it coming at all. And even when we started hearing rumors about COVID-19, we didn't know it was real until following government directives, schools started to shut down and other economic sectors. So billions of students across the globe were affected by the school closure. But most Nigerian students and other underdeveloped countries were more disadvantaged, I would say, because our educational institutions in Nigeria still followed the traditional setup of face-to-face or in-person lectures in normal classroom setting. So during the period, we had to go back home and try to have our lectures online, but that was really, really ineffective because we were already used to the normal classroom, attending your lectures in the morning and taking classes and writing your exam. So we gradually saw the importance of online education in the time of the global pandemic. Okay, thank you. So yeah, we gradually saw the importance of online education during the pandemic, something we were not really used to pre-COVID. So in Nigeria, I remember some private schools, while they tried to organize online training, some private schools in urban areas tried to organize some online training for their students, but a much larger number of less privileged students in rural areas were left out due to the lack of facilities in their schools, and this really hindered them to partake successfully in their online teaching, unlike in developed countries. So the stress and the worry of the pandemic affected a lot of people's mental health, myself inclusive. The isolation, the lockdown, the confinement had a huge toll on women's mental health. The disruption of education due to the pandemic caused so many risks, such as child labor, early marriages, unwanted pregnancies, and even exploitation of children. There was an unexpected rise in students' dropouts, learning losses and increase in digital divide, because some of our colleagues were able to have their classes online and they continued their educational system smoothly, whereas some other persons were disadvantaged. So there was just this digital divide. And a number of my colleagues, I remember, got married during the pandemic. Some returned to school. Some couldn't return to school because of their new status. But in general, the time of graduation for almost every public university student in Nigeria was indirectly elongated. So rather than graduating in 2020 as we expected, our graduation year was elongated because schools were on lockdown. So this was the psychological impact that COVID-19 had on me, especially, and I'm sure a lot of other women and students at that time. So coming to the financial impact of COVID, a lot of women were not paid during the time schools were locked up. This made them unable to provide adequate needs for their families. This COVID really created a lot of havoc in the lives of women, leading to a lot of problems such as stress, fear, anxiety. We were not sure of when is this going to end, when are we going to get back to our normal lives, when are we going to get back to our businesses, our jobs, depression, and even insomnia. And I think in Nigeria, we also recorded a higher level of domestic violence because now women were forced to sit at home and all day with their children and their spouses. So there were issues of domestic violence, and it was just really so much to handle. And a lot of women had to quit their jobs for COVID reasons. It affected their income grossly, going without a pay due to the closure of almost all sectors of the Nigerian economy and I believe other African countries. Women likewise experienced increased home and work responsibilities. I remember I had to do a whole lot of work when I got back home, taking care of my younger siblings and like just basically looking for ways to support my mom, who was a single mom then. Her business suffered due to the COVID-19. Going on lockdown and the restrictions. It was just so much. So her sort of income really suffered. And then I'm sure for other women, like with in-person schools and daycare closed, mothers had to take on new responsibilities, including child care more than usual because normally you would just drop your kids off at school or take them to crèche so you could do some other businesses. But with COVID, we were all stuck in the house with child care, assisting our children with remote learning and in some cases, full homeschooling. And even when students were subjected to online learning, you still had to monitor your children to ensure that they are participating in the classes and not just whiling their time away on social media or getting into some bad influences or involving themselves in some immorality. So a lot of women-owned businesses were disrupted by COVID-19. Like I mentioned earlier, my mom, for example, at the point she was a single mother and she had to pause her business, resulting in her a loss of her daily income as a result of the social distancing guidelines. So this drastically reduced the number of people visiting the market and forcing the whole family to rely heavily on savings. So COVID-19 had a huge toll on the finances of women. Yeah. So a lot of women, the pandemic meant no job, and a lot of us had unemployment benefits, no protection, and the domestic work burden was just multiplied. Imagine staying at home for months and you're not able to work. You're not being supported and you have to face daily survival, like feeding your family, especially when the whole family depended on you. So getting back to our normal lives, I would say it's really not the same. It's really not the same. In as much as every other sector of the economy is open and we're able to go back to our jobs, but really there's been a huge significant difference in pre-COVID and the post-COVID era. Some jobs have become unavailable. Some women have had to scale back their workload we've lost a lot of income, and a lot of women have missed out on their career advancement opportunities. Some students like we had a year of graduation elongated for reasons that the COVID-19. So this was my experience. While Foundation at Wow Foundation, because we work to advance African women, we had to switch to a hybrid work system. We had to switch to a fully remote system and still got support. We're still huge during the COVID era, and even post-COVID, we've seen that you can still live your life and have a normal life and do your work remotely, without having to go to the office regularly or physically. We have seen the importance of online virtual education in Nigeria and in Africa, and now we encourage modern digital facilities that can aid online education. We encourage integrated digital learning platforms, video lessons to supplement the normal classroom teaching, even when there is no pandemic or disaster. So there's still some challenges that we face in implementing the challenges, such as the lack of technical know-how part of the teachers and the students, the poor electric power supply that we experience in some African countries, the internet and the network connectivity problems. But we keep pushing. Yeah, so these were some of the challenges that I experienced as a person and as a woman. And I know so many other women out there experience this as well. Okay, and that's the end of my presentation. So please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you, Grace. We will have, thank you. We'll have questions after everyone has spoken. Thank you. You can close the camera for now, and we'll have discussions afterwards. The next speaker is Dr. Mudiba. She will also tell us about the experiences she had.
Good day, everyone. As introduced, my name is Rosina Mudiba. I'm a senior researcher at CSIR. I'd like to thank Tricia. I'll be in contact with you. Touched so many things that I need, actually. And also to Grace, I think she mentioned a lot of women, even men, were impacted by COVID-19. I'm not going to say a lot due to time. I think she spoke well. On my side, maybe what I can say is that I'm a mother of 3. During COVID-19, I realized that I had 4, right? Luckily, it's not here. Yes, my firstborn was doing matric. You can imagine, she was in matric. The second one, I think she was in grade 5, intermediate. And then the last born was in grade R. You can imagine the pressure that came with it. Especially during that time, I think the first one went into depression because of the matriculants of 2020 or 2019. Like it was a disaster for them. So you can imagine as a mother going through that. The second one, I had to learn to become a homeschooling, like a teacher. I had to teach her a lot in terms of they had, I think, 7 subjects or 8. Each and every teacher wanted a piece of them, like they were sent in worksheets, homeworks every day, and then they had to submit on Google Classroom, And then the last one, I thought we were not doing anything at the crash, but I learned a lot. They're doing quite a lot, I must say. Every Monday, I'll receive a sheet to say, these are the activities. By Friday, you need to sort of send in a report. There was no cheating because sometimes you had to kind of take videos just to show that indeed they did that work. So from my side, with that, I'm a fundamental researcher. I luckily with my stream of work, I could do some of the work, but during midnight, I used to submit jobs at midnight. I had several students that they were completing. I think 2 PhDs. I had 2 masters. I think it's 3 masters. The other one due to COVID-19. Yeah, she couldn't cope. So I had 4, of which they graduated. Like for that, and then like Grace said, most of our our fellow researchers, or academics, they were challenged in terms of finances and so forth. I think a lot of people, they lost their jobs. We should be grateful because we're able to receive our full salaries. That for me, it made me appreciate as much as there was a lot going on, but just for the mere fact that you could provide for your family. I don't want to talk too much. Going back to work for me, yeah, I struggled initially to cope with everything that like the new norm that we had, But ultimately I became comfortable in my own space. Now I have to come to work. It's not easy to sort of wake up in the morning and do the other things that you did prior COVID-19. But I believe that with time, we'll reach that point. So one thing that I know, like we went through a lot, especially women. I believe that women are so strong, And another thing that I've learned is that when I needed help, when you need help, you need to ask for it. I had a circle of women. We had WhatsApps, When I was not coping, I would just talk to them, only to find that whatever I was experiencing was nothing compared to other ones. So sometimes we sit back and think that whatever we're going through, it's worse. But immediately when you talk to your other women, your other friends, you realize that you're going through nothing. People are going through a lot. So speaking, having friends, having coaches, having mentors, I think with those, one was able to sort of, just go through this COVID-19 period, though it was not easy. So let me leave other ones. Thanks a lot.
The next speaker is Christina Mfonto, a PhD student. I don't know how she proved. She will share with us how she did it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Christine Mkonto. I'm a PhD student at the University of Limpopo. I'd like to appreciate the opportunity given by the organizers to share my share of journey throughout the COVID and prior that. Now, one thing that I realized is that we can all be exposed to an austere situation, but however, we all respond differently because we have different kinds of thresholds. And I also had my own fair share during my period. And if I remember correctly, I was during the process of completing my master's degree in 2020 and so ready to register for my PhD. I believe that these are unexpected circumstances that come along that actually try and impose that unexpected change, and you are expected to actually respond positively to it. It was not an easy thing to do. However, I realized that during that process, 2 things that ran in my head was, it is either I fall off into an offshore account or I establish new ground to stand on. Because that for me was an opportunity for me to discover new ways that I can be able to still yield results for whatsoever that it is that I wanted to achieve academically, despite what the circumstance had presented. Because when I looked at it, COVID-19 to me was a Chinese problem. Because I looked at myself, I'm further down there in Limpopo province. So I'm like, no, I'm safe. My PhD is good. I'm definitely going to register for this. And boy, you realize that this is not just a Chinese problem. It's a worldwide problem. And then during that process, I realized that I discovered new ways that I had to actually learn, because you think that you actually have discipline, and only to find that I didn't really have that back then. Because it's a sense of saying that we had a scheduled program that your supervisor will check up on you, make sure that you come to the office. You have to do this by this time frame. So the office hours actually is your discipline. Your supervisor is your discipline. You don't really have it. And now there I was in a circumstance whereby I had now to re-establish what we call self-discipline, because you are now in your safe space and you are exposed to your refrigerator constantly. Whether should you stand up and go check if I can have something to eat or not. And then you need to have those set goals to make sure that throughout the day, I actually establish and actually complete my document before the end of the day. But now the situation doesn't really allow you to do that. I'm sure many of us could agree or adhere to that. I almost said, can I get an amen to that? But then I realized that I had a supervisor that would usually tell me, have your set goals and your visions that you'd actually want to achieve. Could be a year from now or 5 years from now. To me, then it felt like he's just putting on pressure that was unnecessary. Okay, I had that established, true. Now I realized that my visions and my set goals were so rigid, so much that if I actually look at them, and then now there's COVID that's changing, that now we had to work most of the things online. They could not be incorporated during that time frame. So I realized that it is not just about the set goals or the vision. Have a vision that is flexible, that when changes come, either in the present or in the future, it can still be able to run as if you knew about the changes that were going to occur. Now you have your pros and cons and possible changes that were going to actually take place. And then I kept on telling myself, despite what is going to happen, this is my word that I constantly remind myself. And I had to say, we keep at it. You keep doing what you have to do to achieve what you have to achieve. And it's not easy, but it is easier when you have a support system, somewhere to fall back on. So with me, I had to trust God. That was my leaning safe zone. So I believe that we all need to have that leaning safe zone whereby you can actually find yourself, readjust, find a fitting, most possible way that can actually allow you to actually establish you in terms of what you wanted to achieve. And then I was like, there I was, I'm a woman, and it's not easy being a woman. Back then, when we used to have meetings one-on-one as we are here, we are in a very formal place. But back then, now we have an online meetings whereby back then you knew if you were not in the office and your supervisor says, can we have your videos on, you knew you were in trouble. So, and then now we have our online meetings and you're sitting under a tree and birds are chirping. And I'm like, no, it's okay, it's fine. It's a very comfortable thing now, but having to find the ground and the stability between the online and the visual. Now it is entirely dependent on you, on what you want to achieve and what you want to attain as a person. And then after a while, I realized that I had found that ground. Now, what is important for me was to make sure that within that ground, can I incorporate both the online that we had established, which is a new establishment, and what we had prior COVID. And then once you find that, I kept on running with it. And that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, COVID was really hard on us. But we all know that we have ISC conference that runs every year. It was also affected wherein we would attend virtually, or I don't remember if in 2020 it was there. I don't remember. Was it there? I think it was cancelled. But then fortunately for this year, we had, it was virtual. Yeah. So fortunately for this year, we had a woman from CHPC who attended after hard lockdown. She went there in person. So she is going to share with us what other women have been doing, or what they shared in that in their space. So yeah, Lara, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lara Tim. I am an employee of the CHPC. I work in the ACE lab. And I was fortunate enough this year to be a part of the cohort of employees who attended the ISC conference in Hamburg, Germany. I was chosen as a poster presenter for the Women in HPC poster session, where I presented on my experience as a newcomer to the field of HPC. I also have an electrical engineering and biomedical engineering background. So to be new in the field, I felt that I had something to offer, and as a newcomer, and advice that I could give to other groups. But what I'm going to be doing today is giving you a recap of the Women in HPC workshop that I attended and some of the ideas and thoughts that were shared in that session. Okay, so the theme of the workshop this year was creating a diverse and inclusive community, and also it looks like I made a typo. And the idea was to address underrepresentation of women in STEM and specifically in the field of HPC. This was a really great workshop. It was a half-day workshop where the key topics were presented, and these were how to be a part of the solution, instructions for advocates and allies, putting in place a framework to help women grow in their careers, exploring pathways to leadership positions, and supporting other underrepresented groups to create a more inclusive community. There were a number of speakers in each of the sessions in the half-day workshop, and it began with a keynote speaker, short talks, and then a panel discussion in each of the half sessions. And these themes were creating a supportive workplace and promoting visibility, and then the second was more focused on career development. The first speaker, Helene Lebelt, was our keynote speaker, and she presented a very interesting and very engaging keynote, which was quite interactive, where individuals were encouraged to act on diversity rather than just to speak about it. So each of the participants were encouraged to suggest ways in which they could create a more inclusive and diverse academic environment. And some of these suggestions were topics around mentoring and exploring and engaging in these options that are available. How important it is to show up and support your colleagues and women, and how this can foster a sense of sort of pride and a sense of encouragement in these individuals. It was also discussed that we were to set an open standard for expression, and this would help people to stand up and have them feel positive in their experience and allow them to own their own value. And also in line with that, shining a light on other people and trying to include everyone in the room, despite what level they may be compared to other people. And also just in terms of it being a workshop on women in HPC, but that there was an opportunity for anyone to be a role model for inclusion in these spaces. So that was our keynote was lovely. The second short talk was by Kristen Merritt from Elsa's Flight, and she presented a very interesting talk on diversity tax. Now, I'm not sure if many of you have heard of the term diversity tax, but the definition as is shown is the price that women and underrepresented groups pay by participating in diversity groups such as these, in addition to their own regular jobs. And what she had to say was primarily based around the fact that many men and others don't realize the pressures that women face to be the face of diversity in these spaces. And often these women are identified with their diversity roles rather than their roles as researchers or scientists. And this work is done over and above the work that is their primary jobs, and it doesn't get considered when it comes towards times of promotion. And it was a very thought-provoking session to think about how we are being here simply. I would be paying diversity tax in a sense. So it was a very interesting session. I really enjoyed that. The next was a talk from our very own Werner Janssen van Rensburg from the CHPC, who spoke about bridging diversity gaps and specifically about the African perspective of this. He presented in the perspective from an allyship for women and how this is implemented at the CHPC and within the HPC space in South Africa. And he mentioned what was interesting compared to many of the other delegates there is that South Africa has a unique challenge where we have underrepresentation from the majority population groups in HPC. And it was an interesting discussion between ourselves and the other delegates to see how we are approaching this and how we are creating more inclusive environments in HPC in our space. And it was noted and commented from the other delegates that our efforts at continually fostering inclusion were evident in our diverse ACC teams that are often very successful at the ISC competition. So then at the end of the first session, there were the poster sessions and lightning talks, of which I was one of the poster presenters, and each of the poster presenters was asked to have a quick lightning talk to run through their posters. Of these, there were 6 speakers covering various topics, AI, exascale, scalable software, optics, and then myself entering the field of HPC. And what was really great about this was that it was an opportunity for young researchers to have the light shone on them and for them to be able to present how they are approaching these things and topics, specifically as young women coming into the field. They had an opportunity to present the work that they're doing and create awareness of the good things that they're doing in the field. And as I mentioned, my poster title was 0 to HPC in 365 days. And it was simply my experience as a newcomer in the field. And there was quite a lot of interesting questions from many research labs to see what it was like and what they could do to help address these problems going forward. The next half session was on leadership. The first talk by Laura Schultz from Leibniz Supercomputing Center. And she spoke about steering a career path towards leadership. So predominantly her experiences she shared with us on how working in a leadership role can mean learning to let go of your ego. So she said previously she was focused on her own successes and it had to change to be finding joy in the success of the team. She had found that she needed to be more comfortable with accepting accountability. And in her mentoring situation, she found that this was something that she had to foster in the people that were learning from her on how to be good leaders. It was important that people in these roles needed to start to engage with difficult conversations and to start these conversations themselves as something that they would want to do to be good leaders and to bring about change in these spaces, especially in terms of diversity and inclusivity. She spoke about needing to be able to convert the vision of the institution into something that they could do and into an actionable plan for your employees and those below you to get things done. And also she spoke about attending to individual communication styles and needs of your team in order to get the most out of them and to have success in their space and within the labs. The next was a short talk by Jack Wells, and he spoke on building expertise. And one of the things that stuck with the audience, I think, a lot was that the definition, I can't remember now who the definition, the quote, I can't remember who this quote was from, but it was, an expert is someone who has made all the mistakes that can be made in the field. And it was quite a thought-provoking talk. And he spoke a lot about the value of feedback conversations and how feedback should not simply be presented to individuals, but it should be a conversation between the manager or leader and the teammate and come to sort of a consensus about what needs to be done to move forward and to positively progress, and for that feedback to happen more regularly as well, just so that the positive change can happen in small increments. And and the last point that's fine actually. CJ Newburn was the last short talk, and he spoke about character and community. And I think for me, what stood out most in this talk, and probably in general from the workshop itself, was that many of the speakers were talking about the need for soft skills in the scientific field and how it is very important for individuals to be able to use skills like self-awareness and people skills and learning how to talk to people. And I think that that is something that is a powerful space for women to be in tech, because they have more of intuition regarding engaging with people, and they get a sense for the emotional feel of the room. And CJ spoke about reframing and how this is a good skill to learn to build resilient leaders. And what he meant by this was that it is up to you to make conscious choices on how you view and respond to situations, and that you have to own your ability to have a positive mindset regardless of the situation you're in or the reaction that you may have. So assuming a proactive rather than a reactive role in situations, and to make others feel safe and understood is often the first step in resolving conflict. And in line with this, that in terms of inclusivity and diversity, you have to make the conscious choice in your space and around you to make that more prominent in your environment. Yeah. So in closing, I felt very fortunate to be able to be part of this workshop, and I feel like I learned a lot in the session. And I think that there is a lot to learn and a lot of value, as I said, in the soft skills in HPC, in this very academic field and in STEM in general. And I think there's a lot of room for women to use the skills that they have to bring a different perspective to situations and to allow individuals to have more room to shine, and for them to use their, as I said, individual skills to make a more inclusive and diverse community.
Thank you, Lara. We have run out of time, but I will take about 3 questions, short questions for our speakers. I will note hands. Oh, there's a hand at the back. Mabat.
Good afternoon. Thank you. To the first speaker, I want to ask about mentorship. Does the relationship have to be defined as a like a mentorship relationship, or can it just be a random thing at times? And also, so there's this other seminar I attended, and this lady was also demonstrating the need for a mentor, and she actually said that you have to be willing to pay. Does it always have to be a paid kind of relationship?
So first, I think that I've been in mentoring relationships that I didn't know wouldn't be labeled a mentor. You know, there are formal relationships that in most of the organizations I've been where they have a mentoring program, never paid. I've never paid to be a mentor or to have a mentor. That's one thing. So that's, I don't, maybe that's a terminology that there might be something different and maybe the audience knows better, but I've never paid or have heard of paying for a mentor. And I agree that the term you don't have to be. It's somebody that you go to for advice and gives you advice. And I've looked back and said, oh yeah, that was a mentor to me, not really knowing that, giving that label to the relationship at the time.
Thank you. The next question.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, to the first speaker, still on mentorship, I just wanted to find out, must your mentor be from your field, or can you just get a mentor from any other fields?
You can get a mentor from any field, depending upon what you're looking for. Okay. So if you, when I first became an engineer and joined, it was beneficial to have somebody that was part of that career path also. But tell me, I've had mentors about becoming a mom. How do you do that work-life balance? You know, so it can be from various areas of your life where you're asking for advice, and somebody that has been in those shoes before and can just help you.
Last question.
you. I learned some interesting word from you. The diversity tax. I've not heard about it before. So I just want to ask any of the speakers, what do they think of that? Is it something that is too high to pay, or do they have experience on that?
I don't know if I wouldn't say I have experience on it, particularly because I'm quite new in the field, but I think that it is something that, and it was something that Kristen mentioned in her talk as well, is that it's important to take a moment and take a beat and reflect on whether or not acting in that role is something that is going to benefit you going forward and benefit you in your career. So if it is, obviously, if you're doing it simply to be the face and you don't feel like it's personally going to benefit you or others, then it may not be something that is a tax that is worth paying. But if you can see a benefit for yourself, or you can see a benefit for others, then it may be a tax that you're worth, that may be worth paying, but it needs to come from you, and you need to decide whether or not that's something that you want to do, I think.
I had not heard that term either, and I loved it. I wrote it down in my book. But I have, like, just recently we were doing Exascale Day, and I'm the new person brought in. I run all products in engineering. Okay, so I'm the technical leader. And they asked me to do the diversity tax. Can you do a thing with women HPC? And I'm like, no. I'm going to do the technical talk and paddle, and we're going to find another woman who needs that visibility to do that. So it happens all the time. I've never heard the label, but I love it. But again, this all goes back to getting the sponsors, so that, I mean, I'm strong enough now to say no, but you need the people that are up there to be able to say no for you.
All right, thank you, everyone. We will not take more questions because of time. We would like to thank Trish for her time. Thank you so much. This is for you. Please don't go. Please don't go. Women in HPC has suffered a lot after the COVID-19, as you all know. We haven't been active. Now we're looking for people who are women, who are even men. We're getting a lot of support from Werner. I mean, he's supporting a lot. Yeah, so anyone who's interested in helping us or forming the committee or the whatever, student volunteers, you can come talk to me. I'll be here today, tomorrow. We can take it from there. Thank you very much for supporting us. Thank you.